The alien colony was alive with sounds of laughter and play. Children ran across the dusty playground, chasing after a floating ball that shimmered with light. It was the game of gravity ball, the favorite sport of the young ones in the settlement. The ball could rise and dip, it could fly in strange curves because of the low gravity on the planet. The children loved the challenge, jumping high, kicking hard, and shouting with joy. But in the corner, away from the circle of joy, sat a small girl. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and glowing like two moons. One of her legs was missing. Below the knee, replaced only with a crude metal crutch. Her name was Lyra, and she was different from the others. She watched them play, but she did not join. She had not joined for many seasons, not since the accident in mines. The teacher noticed her silence and waved for her to step closer. "Come, Lyra, the team needs another player." The teacher called gently. The girl lowered her head. Clutching her crutch tighter, her voice came out soft, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. "Sorry, sir, I can't play ball," she said. The words cut deep, not only to herself, but to the one listening nearby, standing by the edge of the playground was John, the human mechanic. He had been fixing broken machines in the colony for years. Most aliens saw him as strange, a tinkerer who played with scraps of metal. But John had seen many things in his life, and when his eyes fell on Lyra, sitting alone while the others laughed, his heart grew heavy. He noticed the way the children looked at her, some with pity, some with mockery. One boy shouted, "She cannot run, she cannot kick, why should she play?" The others laughed, not cruelly, but with the careless cruelty of youth. Lyra's cheeks burned, but she only lowered her head further. She did not fight back, she did not speak. Her silence was louder than any scream. John folded his arms, his eyes narrowing. He had seen such looks before on Earth. He remembered children who were left behind, those who were different, those who had scars. But humans had learned to help, to build, to create ways for those left behind to rise again. The aliens did not understand that yet. But John did, and as he watched Lyra, he felt a spark ignite inside him. Lyra tapped the ground with her crutch, slowly turning away. She did not want anyone to see her eyes shine with tears. She had once dreamed of playing gravity ball, of flying high into the air and hearing the crowd cheer her name. But that dream had broken the day her leg was crushed. Now she only dreamed of being invisible. Invisible was safer. Invisible did not hurt. Yet John did not look away. He watched as she picked up a small stone with her thin hands. When no one was watching, she threw it weakly into the air. The stone arched, then fell. She tried again, this time with more force. Her small arms strained, her teeth clenched. Again and again she threw stones, as if she wanted to prove to herself that she still had strength. John's eyes softened. He saw something no one else saw. Her spirit was not broken, not yet. It was only hidden under pain and shame. The laughter of the children echoed across the colony. But John heard something else, the sound of determination in a child who refused to stop. He thought of the tools in his workshop, of the scraps of metal waiting to be shaped. An idea began to form in his mind, sharp and bright. Perhaps she thought she could never play again. Perhaps everyone believed it, but John knew better. He had seen humans rise against impossible odds. He had seen machines give wings to those who could not walk, and now he wondered, could he give wings to her? Lyra threw the last stone inside, her shoulders slumping. She whispered again to herself, "Sorry, sir, I can't play ball." But John, standing in the shadows, smiled faintly, because in his heart, he had already decided this was not the end of her story. This was only the beginning, and soon the colony would learn what humans could do when they refused to give up. The ball flew high in the playground, the children cheering. But far away, a different game had already begun, a game of hope, invention, and courage, and at the center of it all was a little girl who thought she could not play, and a human mechanic who had a plan. John walked back to his small workshop at the edge of the colony. The building was old, patched together with metal sheets and spare parts. Most aliens ignored it, saying it smelled of oil and fire, but for John, it was a place of ideas, a place where dreams could be built with bolts and wires. He sat at his desk, staring at the scattered tools. His mind was not on the machines waiting for repair. It was on the little girl with the pale blue skin and sad glowing eyes. He could still hear her whisper, "Sorry, sir, I can't play ball." That voice replayed in his head again and again. Each time it struck him like a hammer. He leaned back, rubbing his face with tired hands. "Maybe she can't play yet," he muttered, "but maybe I can change that." He grabbed a piece of paper and began to sketch. Lines and curves appeared, turning into a shape. It was not just a drawing, it was a plan, a leg, mechanical and strong. Made for speed and balance, he drew gears, joints, and wires, thinking of how they could work together. It had to be light, or she could not move fast. It had to be strong, or it would break on the first kick. And most of all, it had to feel like it belonged to her. John's pencil moved faster, the image growing clearer. He was not just building a limb, he was building a future. The colony would laugh at the idea, he knew. The aliens respected strength, not invention. To them, a broken limb was a broken life. But John had seen humans walk again with prosthetics. He had seen soldiers dance with metal legs. He had seen children run with carbon blades instead of flesh. He whispered to himself, "If humans can do it, then so can she." Night fell outside, the moons rising over the colony. The workshop glowed with the light of fire and sparks. John cut pieces of metal, shaped rods, and tested springs. His hands moved with skill, guided by years of practice. He remembered his father's words back on Earth. "Machines are just ideas made solid, son. But they can carry a soul if you build them with love." John smiled faintly at the memory. He wondered if his father would be proud now. The next day, John walked through the colony markets. He bought wires from one stall, small gears from another. The alien merchants looked at him with suspicion. "Why do you need these parts?" "Human," one of them asked. John only smiled, hiding the truth. "It's for a machine." He answered simply. They shrugged, thinking he was strange as always. No one guessed his true plan, not yet. Back in the workshop, the device began to take shape. The metal leg was small, built for the body of a young girl. It had flexible joints, springs for balance, and soft padding where it would connect. John polished the surface until it gleamed. It was not perfect, not yet, but it was hope given form. Meanwhile, Lyra sat alone outside her home. She tapped her crutch on the ground, staring at the sky. The other children's laughter still echoed in her mind. Her chest ached with shame. She wished she could vanish into the air, but deep inside, she still dreamed. She still saw herself flying across the playground, chasing the ball, every night in her sleep. She played the game she could no longer touch. And every morning, she woke to the cold weight of reality. John saw her from afar, his heart heavy. He wanted to tell her about the machine, but he held back. What if it failed? What if it broke? What if it hurt her even more? He could not let her hope rise too soon, not until he was sure. So he worked in silence, hammering, shaping, testing. Every strike of the hammer echoed like a promise he would keep. One evening, as the suns dipped low, Lyra wandered near the workshop. She heard strange sounds, the hiss of steam, the crack of sparks, the rhythm of hammer on metal. Curious, she peeked through a gap in the wall. She saw John bent over his work, sweat on his brow. Before him lay something strange, a piece of metal shaped like a leg. Her eyes widened, her heart skipped, but John turned suddenly, catching her in the act. She gasped and stepped back, almost falling. He walked over, wiping his hands, his face calm. "What did you see, little one?" he asked. Lyra lowered her head, whispering, "Nothing, sir." But her glowing eyes betrayed her curiosity. John smiled gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes nothing is the beginning of something great," he said. Then he sent her home, keeping his secret safe for now. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She kept thinking of the shiny metal limb. Her mind raced with questions. Could it be for her? Could it really make her play again? Or was it just another machine, another dream that was not hers? In the workshop, John tightened the last bolt. The mechanical leg stood on the table, silent and waiting. He looked at it with tired but determined eyes. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. Outside, the wind carried the sounds of laughter from the playground, but soon, John believed, that laughter would change, because soon one broken girl would stand among them, not as weak, but as strong, and the colony would never see her the same way again. The days passed slowly in the alien colony. Children still gathered at the playground to play gravity ball. Their laughter filled the air, bouncing against the walls of the settlement. But for Lyra, the sounds felt like reminders of what she could never have. She sat on the edge of the field with her crutch, watching, never joining. Her heart longed to be part of their joy, but her body held her back. Yet even in her silence, a small fire still lived inside her. She carried stones in her pocket, round ones she collected from the colony roads. When no one was around, she threw them into the air. Her aim was clumsy at first, her arms too weak. The stones barely rose before falling back to the ground. Still, she did not stop. Again and again she threw, her breath growing heavy, her hands growing sore. The stones flew higher each time, bouncing farther across the dust. Every throw was a battle, every battle a victory. One evening, John returned from the market and saw her in the distance. The sun was low, painting the sky in gold and red. There she was, standing on one leg, sweat shining on her blue skin. Her crutch was set aside, her small arms pulling back to throw another stone. He watched silently as she hurled it, her whole body twisting with effort. The stone soared higher than before, spinning before crashing into the sand. Lyra gasped, her chest rising and falling, but her eyes lit with fierce pride. John felt a strange warmth in his chest. She was stronger than she knew, stronger than the others believed. He did not reveal himself then. Instead, he returned quietly to his workshop. Her determination fueled his work. If she could fight so hard with nothing but her arms, then how much more could she do with the gift he was making? The mechanical limb would not just restore her balance, it would match her spirit, a spirit unbroken. The next day, the children gathered again. They laughed as they played, tossing the ball higher, faster. One boy spotted Lyra watching and sneered. "Why do you stare?" he called. "You will never play." The others chuckled, not all with cruelty, but none with kindness. Lyra's cheeks flushed, her fingers gripping her crutch tight. She wanted to shout back, but the words caught in her throat, so she turned away, walking into the quiet edge of the colony. There, among the rocks, she picked up more stones. Her silence spoke louder than their laughter. She would not fight with words, she would fight with effort. Hours passed as she trained. Her shoulders burned, her arms shook, but still she threw one stone, then another. The sky above turned dark, the moons rising one by one. She did not stop until her body begged for rest. Finally she sat on the ground, hugging her knees. Her breath came in ragged gasps, but her eyes glowed with determination. "I will not give up," she whispered to herself. Her voice was soft, but it carried the strength of a promise. John, hidden nearby once again, heard her words. He had followed her quietly, unsure if she would notice, but she was too focused on her training. He smiled, shaking his head. "This girl had something special, something rare," he whispered under his breath. "She already has the heart of a player." That night, John sat in his workshop staring at the nearly finished mechanical leg. He ran his hand along its smooth surface. "It is not just the machine that will carry her," he thought. "It is her spirit that will make this work." He added a few adjustments, tightening the springs, softening the padding. He wanted the device to feel like part of her, not a cage. Every strike of his hammer felt different now. It was not just about building, it was about believing. Meanwhile, Lyra's mother noticed the bruises on her daughter's arms. "Why do you hurt yourself like this?" she asked gently. Lyra only shook her head. "I want to be strong, Mother," she whispered. Her mother sighed, brushing her hand over Lyra's hair. "You are already strong, my little one," she said. But Lyra's eyes looked away. Searching the distance, she did not feel strong, not yet. But she would be. The colony still saw her as broken. The children still saw her as weak. But slowly, quietly, her strength grew. Every night of secret training, every bruise, every throw, it was shaping her into someone who would not quit. Someone who would not bow to pity or cruelty. John knew the time was near. The leg was almost ready. The girl was more ready than anyone realized. All she needed was a chance. All she needed was a spark. And soon, very soon, John would give it to her. For now the colony still laughed, for now she was still the outsider. But the winds of change were already moving. And in the quiet shadows of the colony, a girl with one leg and a pocket full of stones was proving her hidden strength. And a human with oil-stained hands was preparing a plan that would change everything. The workshop smelled of metal and oil. John wiped his forehead, his hands covered in grease. Before him stood the machine he had built with care, a leg of shining steel and smooth joints, made not to replace what was lost, but to give back what was stolen. It was lighter than stone, stronger than bone, and flexible enough to move like a real limb. He stared at it with a mix of pride and worry. Would it work, or would it fail? Would it bring hope, or only more pain outside? The colony carried on as usual. Children shouted as they played. Merchants bargained at stalls. Workers marched to the mines. But John's thoughts were only on one girl. The girl who had whispered, "Sorry, sir, I can't play ball." The girl who still threw stones in the dark, refusing to surrender. That evening, John found Lyra sitting alone by the edge of the playground. Her crutch rested against the wall, her arms hugging her knees. The laughter of the children echoed, but she did not look up. John crouched beside her, his voice calm. "Lyra," he said, "come with me." She lifted her head, blinking, confused. Her glowing eyes searched his face, unsure if he was serious. "Where?" she asked softly. "To my workshop," he answered. "I want to show you something." She hesitated, her small fingers tightening. On her crutch, the workshop was a strange place, full of noise and sparks. Many children feared it, calling it the Cave of Fire. But something in John's voice made her rise slowly. She followed him, step by step, her crutch tapping against the dusty ground. When they entered, her eyes widened. She saw piles of tools, scraps of metal, wires like veins across the tables. Machines half-built, machines broken, machines shining with new polish. And then, at the center, on a table lit by a single lamp, she saw it, a leg, small but powerful, shaped carefully to fit her size. Her breath caught in her throat. She took a step closer, her heart pounding. What is that?" she whispered. John placed his hand on the device, his eyes steady. "This," he said, "is for you." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She shook her head quickly, backing away. "No, sir, I cannot. I am not strong." "Enough, I will break it." John shook his head firmly. "No, Lyra. You are stronger than you think. I have seen it." He gently pushed the leg closer to her. "I built this for you, and only you. But it will only work if you believe it can." Her hands trembled as she touched the cool metal. It felt alive, as if it was waiting for her. Her chest tightened, fear battling against hope. "What if I fall?" she asked, her voice almost a kyo. "Whisper." John's lips curled into a faint smile. "Then you stand up again," he said. "Falling is not failure, giving up is." With his careful hands, he guided her to sit on the chair. Slowly, he fitted the mechanical limb to her stump, fastening the straps, adjusting the joints. The metal clicked and locked into place. The moment it connected, she froze. Feeling strange weight press against her body, John stepped back, his heart racing. "Now try," he said softly. Her fingers gripped the chair tightly, her one good leg pressed against the floor. She pushed herself up, trembling. The mechanical Lim touched the ground for the first time. It wobbled, unsteady, but it held. She gasped, her eyes wide. I am standing," she whispered. "Yes," John said proudly. "You are standing on 2 legs." But the test was not over. She took a step forward, and the leg bent awkwardly. She stumbled, nearly falling. Her arms flailed, her heart pounding. In panic, John rushed forward, steadying her. "Do not fear it," he said firmly. "Trust it. Trust yourself." She nodded nervously, trying again. One step, then another. The sound of metal tapping against the floor echoed in the workshop. Her face was tense, but her eyes burned with focus. Each step grew steadier, each movement smoother. John's chest swelled with pride as he watched. Finally, she let go of his arm, walking on her own. She turned, looking at him with disbelief. I am walking," she said, her voice breaking. John smiled softly. "You are more than walking, Lyra. You are beginning." But the journey was not without pain. Her legs shook, her muscles ached. Sweat dripped down her skin. At one point, she stumbled again. Crashing to the floor, tears filled her eyes, shame rising in her chest. But John crouched beside her, his hand firm on her shoulder. "Remember what I said," he whispered. "Falling is not failure." Her tears trembled, but she nodded. Wiping her face, she pushed herself up again, her determination burning brighter than before. Hour after hour, she practiced, step after step, stumble after stumble, rise after rise, until finally she walked the length of the workshop without falling. Her crutch lay forgotten in the corner. She looked back at it, then at John. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Sorry, sir," she whispered. "But maybe I can play ball." John laughed softly, shaking his head. "You will not just play, child," he said. "You will fly." And deep inside, he knew the first test had only just begun. The colony was buzzing with excitement. Today was the day of the big gravity ball match. Every season, the children of the settlement played before the whole community. Parents, teachers, and workers gathered to cheer. It was not just a game. It was tradition. Victory meant honor, defeat meant shame. The playground was swept clean, the floating ball polished until it glowed under the twin suns. Lyra stood at the edge of the crowd, her crutch gone, in its place, the shining mechanical. Lim gleamed under the light. She had trained for days in secret with John. Each night, she walked, stumbled, and rose again. Each morning, she moved faster, steadier, stronger. But now, standing in the open, her courage trembled. The whispers began as soon as people saw her. "Is that the broken girl?" one alien asked. "What is she doing here?" Another muttered, "She cannot play." A child laughed, pointing at her metal leg. Lyra's hands shook, her chest heavy with doubt. The old words echoed in her mind. "Sorry, sir, I can't play ball." But then she remembered John's steady voice. "Falling is not failure, giving up is." She closed her glowing eyes, breathing deeply. Her heart beat like a drum. She had come too far to turn back. John stood nearby, his arms crossed, his eyes firm. When Lyra looked at him, he gave a small nod. It was not loud encouragement, but a silent promise, a reminder that she was not alone. With trembling steps, she walked toward the field. Her metal leg tapped against the ground, ringing sharp in the silence. The teacher blinked in surprise as she approached. "Lyra," he said, "what are you doing here?" Her voice shook, but it carried. "I want to play," she said. The children burst into laughter. "She cannot even run," one boy shouted. "She will fall and break again," another added. The teacher frowned, unsure. He looked at her leg, then at John, who stood silently watching. Finally, he sighed and nodded. "Very well. If you wish to try, you may." Lyra walked onto the field, her steps unsteady. The ball floated in the air, spinning slowly. The other children gathered, some smirking, some curious. The game began with a shout, the ball flying high into the air. The players leapt, twisting and kicking, their voices echoing. At first, Lyra stood still, her body stiff, her heart racing. The ball passed near her, and she hesitated. One boy laughed. "See, she is useless," the crowd murmured, shaking their heads. But then John's voice echoed in her mind again. "Trust yourself." She clenched her fists, stepping forward, her metal leg pressed into the ground, pushing her forward faster than she expected. She stumbled, but did not fall. The ball came toward her again, spinning low, her eyes locked on it, her chest tightening. She lifted her foot and kicked. The sound rang out, sharp and clean. The ball soared into the air, higher than anyone thought she could. The crowd gasped, their voices silenced for a moment. The children stared, wide-eyed. One of the players scrambled to catch it but missed. The ball sailed past and landed in the hands of Lyra's teammate. Cheers erupted from a few voices in the crowd. Lyra's eyes widened, her chest rising with new strength. She had done it. The game went on. At first, she struggled to keep up, her steps uneven, her breath heavy. But each moment, she grew steadier. Her metal limb clicked and whirred, moving faster with her. Her body learned its rhythm, her spirit filled the gaps. She caught the ball once, then twice. Each time she passed it cleanly, surprising everyone. The laughter in the crowd faded, replaced by murmurs of awe. "Is this the same girl?" one parent whispered. "She moves like lightning," another said. The children who mocked her now stared in silence. Their eyes followed her as she ran, jumped, and played. Even the teacher watched with disbelief. Her determination had turned doubt into wonder. But the real test was yet to come. The score was tied, the match down to its final moment. The ball floated in the air, drifting toward Lyra. The crowd held its breath. Her heart pounded, her limbs ached. Sweat dripped down her skin. This was the chance, the moment that would decide everything. Could she do it, or would she fall? The ball dipped low, spinning toward her. The children shouted. Her teammates called her name. Her hands trembled, her body shook, but her eyes locked on the ball, glowing with fierce light. She planted her metal leg firmly into the ground. Her other leg swung back, and with all the strength she had, she kicked. The ball shot through the air like a comet. The crowd gasped, their voices rising in shock. It soared past the defenders, spinning faster, and then, with a crash of light, it slammed into the goal. Silence filled the playground. For one heartbeat, no one moved. Then, the colony erupted into cheers. Voices roared, hands clapped, feet stamped. Lyra stood frozen, staring at the ball inside the goal. Her chest rose and fell, her eyes wide with disbelief. She whispered to herself, her voice trembling, "Sorry, sir. I can play ball." John's lips curved into a proud smile. He whispered softly, though no one heard, "I told you, child, you would fly." And as the crowd cheered her name for the first time, the disabled alien girl who once hid in silence stood tall, her strength shining brighter than the metal that carried her. And the colony began to see her not as broken, but as something extraordinary. The cheers still echoed in Lyra's ears long after the match ended. For the first time since her accident, the crowd was not laughing at her. They were chanting her name. Children rushed toward her, their eyes wide, their voices full of questions. "How did you do that?" one boy asked. "Can you really run with that leg?" another shouted. Lyra stood breathless, her face glowing with a mix of pride and disbelief. She touched the mechanical limb, the metal warm from the game. "I just tried," she whispered. But inside she knew it was more. It was not just her effort. It was John's plan, John's gift, and her own refusal to give up. John stayed back, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. He did not need the crowd's cheers. It was enough to see the girl smiling for the first time in years. But as he watched, he also saw the shift in eyes of the colony leaders. They were not only surprised, they were uncertain. Humans were not known for strength among the aliens. But here was proof that human invention could change fate itself. That evening, the settlement buzzed with talk. At the markets, merchants whispered about the game. At first she stumbled, but then she ran, one said. Her leg was metal. Yet she played better than most of the children, another added. Some voices carried doubt. It is unnatural, it will not last, they muttered. But others spoke with respect. Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought, Lyra walked. Home with her mother, the metal leg clinked softly with each step. Her mother held her close, tears shining in her eyes. My child. You were shining out there, she said. Lyra smiled shyly. I was only playing. Her mother shook her head gently. No, you were showing them your strength. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her small home. Her heart was full of questions. Was this only the beginning, or would it all fade? Would the colony accept her now, or would they still see her as broken? She touched the straps of the mechanical leg, feeling the smooth edges of the metal. It was not part of her body. Yet it felt like part of her soul, and for the first time, she did not whisper, "Sorry, sir, I can't play ball." Instead, she whispered, "Tomorrow, I will play again." Meanwhile, John worked late in his workshop. The sound of tools echoed through the quiet night. He studied the limb, adjusting the joints, polishing the surfaces. Though it had worked in the match, he knew it could be better. He wanted it lighter, faster, stronger. Not because she needed it, but because she deserved the best. Every improvement was a gift, a promise to the child who had believed in him. The next morning, when Lyra returned to the playground, the atmosphere was different. The children no longer looked at her with mockery. They stared with curiosity, even respect. One of the older boys stepped forward, the same one who had laughed at her before. You were good, he admitted awkwardly. Lyra blinked, unsure how to answer. She only nodded and smiled faintly. The boy hesitated, then added, "Maybe you should be on my team next time." The words shocked her. For years, she had been pushed away. Now someone was asking her to join. Her heart swelled with warmth. But acceptance did not come from everyone. Some parents whispered to the teacher, they should not allow such machines in the game. They said, it gives her an advantage. Others complained. The teacher frowned, torn between tradition and fairness. But when he looked at Lyra, standing tall with hope shining in her eyes, he sighed. Let the children play, he said. The game is not about rules, it is about spirit. Over the next days, Lyra practiced. Openly, she no longer trained alone with stones in the shadows. She ran with the other children, chasing the ball. Falling, rising, and laughing. The sound of her laughter, once hidden, became the brightest sound on the field. John often watched from a distance, his arms folded, a quiet smile on his face. He did not need to stand in the center. His work was already speaking louder than words. But with change came new challenges. Some children grew jealous, muttering, "She only wins because of the human's machine." Others admired her too much, following her everywhere, asking her to show them how it worked. Lyra felt the pressure. She was still learning, still stumbling. But now the whole colony was watching. Every step felt like a test. Every mistake felt heavier. One evening, she returned to John's workshop, her face troubled. "They do not believe it is me," she said, her voice heavy. "They say it is only the leg, not my strength." John knelt beside her, looking into her glowing eyes. "Do you know the truth?" he asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Yes." "Then let them say what they will." John said firmly, "The machine may carry you, but it is you who moves it. It is you who makes it fly." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of gratitude. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "Thank you, sir." For the first time, John's hands trembled slightly. He had built machines his whole life, but never before had one meant so much. The turning point had come. Lyra was no longer the broken child with a crutch. She was the girl who played, the girl who rose, the girl who made the colony see differently. And though some still doubted, the change had begun. A shift not only for her, but for everyone who watched. The human's plan was no longer a secret. It was a spark, and it had set fire to the hearts of many. The next season's match was larger than ever. Not only children but families from the whole colony gathered to watch. Word had spread about the girl with the human's machine. Some came to see her succeed. Others came hoping she would fail. But all eyes were on her, the broken child who had once whispered, "Sorry, sir." "I can't play ball" was now the player everyone talked about. Lyra stood on the edge of the field, her heart racing. The metal leg gleamed in the sunlight. Stronger now after John's careful adjustments, she breathed deeply, her glowing eyes fixed on the ball. The children beside her whispered with nervous excitement. "She will lead us to victory," one said. Another muttered, "Or maybe the leg will break." Lyra heard them, but she stayed calm. She remembered John's words, "The machine may carry you, but you are the one who makes it fly." John sat quietly at the back of the crowd, his arms crossed, his eyes steady. He had done all he could. Now the rest was up to her. The game began. With a roar, the ball floated high, spinning through the air. The children leapt, twisted, and kicked, their voices rising in shouts. At first, Lyra stayed back, letting her teammates move. Her heart beat like thunder, her hands trembled. But then the ball came near, spinning low toward her side. The crowd hushed, waiting. She stepped forward, her metal limb pressing firm into the ground. Her foot swung, fast and sure. The ball flew high, soaring past the defenders. The cheer that erupted was louder than anything she had ever heard. The game raged on, each side fighting hard. Lyra ran faster than before, her movements steady and sharp. She caught passes, blocked attacks, and kicked with precision. The children who once mocked her now shouted her name. The parents who once pitied her now gasped in awe. Even the leaders of the colony leaned forward, watching with narrow eyes. But victory would not come easily. The other team grew desperate, targeting her again and again. One boy slammed into her side, sending her tumbling. Gasps filled the air as she hit the ground. The crowd waited, holding their breath. Would she cry? Would she stay down? But slowly, painfully, Lyra pushed herself up, her face streaked with dust, her lips trembling. Yet her eyes glowed brighter than ever. "I will not stop," she whispered. The crowd erupted in cheers as she stood tall once more. The match neared its end. The score tied. Only one play remained. The ball floated near the center, spinning slowly. The children clashed, pushing, shouting, struggling for control. Then, with a sudden twist, the ball bounced free, rolling toward Lyra. Every eye turned to her. The world seemed to hold its breath. Her chest rose and fell. Her heart pounded. This was the moment to prove not only to them, but to herself. She planted her metal leg into the ground. Her body shifted, her arms stretched. The ball rose as she struck it with all her strength. It soared like a shooting star, glowing as it spun. The defenders leapt, but it passed above their reach. The ball slammed into the goal with a sound that shook the air. Silence, then an explosion of cheers. The colony roared. Children screamed her name. Parents clapped. Workers shouted. The sound rolled across the settlement like thunder. Lyra stood frozen, her chest heaving, her eyes wide with disbelief. Tears welled in her glowing eyes. She whispered, soft but proud, "Sorry, sir. I can play ball." John closed his eyes, his lips curling into the faintest smile. It was not just a victory. It was a realization. He had given her a machine, but she had given him something greater. Proof that hope could live even in the darkest places. The colony leaders approached, their faces serious. One of them looked at John, his voice low. "Your human hands made this possible," he said. "We always thought humans weak, but now we see your strength is not in muscle, but in invention, in faith, in the way you lift others." John bowed his head slightly, his voice calm. "It was never about the machine," he said. "It was about the girl who never gave up." From that day on, Lyra was no longer called broken. She was called a player, a champion, a symbol of courage. The children who once mocked her now followed her, eager to learn. The parents who once pitied her now told her story with pride. And the colony itself began to change. They no longer looked at humans as weak outsiders. They looked at them as builders, as allies, as friends. Lyra still trained every day, not because she needed to prove herself, but because she loved the game. Her laughter echoed through the playground, bright and fearless, and each time she kicked the ball high into the air, she remembered the man who had believed in her when no one else did, the human mechanic with oil-stained hands, the man who had given her not just a leg, but a chance, and though she still whispered to herself sometimes, the words had changed forever. Not sorry, sir, I can't play ball, but thank you, sir, because now I can. The colony never forgot that day. The day a disabled alien girl stood tall. The day a human's invention turned despair into hope. And the day everyone realized that true strength was not about power or perfection. It was about helping others rise, no matter how broken they seemed.